As emergency managers, we often hold the belief that we need to be both physically and psychologically bulletproof during long, intense mobilizations. Long hours, demanding work environments, and an often heightened sense of purpose push us to ignore fatigue, stress, and mental strain. But I'm here today to remind everyone, including myself, that we are not bulletproof, and it is important for our overall success during an activation that we understand that. I understand that's hard to hear. It's even harder to accept. The first time I ignored SelfCare, I was overseas with the Peace Corps. I'd been nominated as the security warden, where I was responsible for the safety of my colleagues in the event of a security incident. Unfortunately, 13 months into this role, I was medically evacuated from the country after failing to accept that my own personal health had deteriorated to a point where I was nearly unable to get out of bed. I spent the next 10 years of my professional experience dedicated to emergency management, in part to recover from that blind spot I had experienced. I got experience in a variety of environments: foreign, domestic, public, private, responded to hurricanes, riots, floods, and security incidents. I got my master's in emergency management. So I had the field experience, the educational equivalent. I proved it through my CEM, which is a required plug for this presentation. So judges table, as you did with Andrew, mark that down for mine as well. And then it happened again. I ignored SelfCare when mobilized for a major incident. I mobilized for a major disaster, including dozens of injuries and even more, or dozens of deaths and even more injuries. A disaster not unlike many, if not all of you here today have experienced firsthand. But you know what it's like when you get that call. You get in your car or you get on that plane and you just go. And when you get there, you often find yourself in a situation where you need to step into a role that you might not have a lot of experience in. But you do it because of that heightened sense of responsibility I warned you about at the beginning of this presentation. Now, I can specifically remember during this mobilization as my mind started to wander towards that natural question of who would have inquired about me or my family had we been involved with this disaster. I was overtired, overcaffeinated simultaneously, stressed, surrounded by sadness, loss, and everything else that we see during a disaster. But we often don't say anything. We don't ask for another task because often we see folks around us working with us who have considerably more difficult tasks than we do. And we use that as a mental block to stop those red flags we're seeing during these disasters. Because we're trying to prove to ourselves and our colleagues that we are, in fact, bulletproof. Now, I remember when I demobilized, that's when it hit me really hard. I found myself holding back tears when thinking about it, remembering the victims. Just yesterday, during a presentation, I got emotional, and that's the first time Mickey Mouse has ever made me cry. So shame on you, Walt Disney. So what do we do to address this very natural aspect of our occupation? Emotions are normal during long, intense activations. But we must be able to develop that personal, internal, situational awareness. We do it very well for our jobs, but we must also be able to do that for ourselves. So based on my experiences, I have a couple of tactics I've developed that I would ask that you really think critically about and potentially apply during your next mobilization. First, tiredness, stress, hunger. It's going to occur during an activation. Certain levels of it must be anticipated, and certain levels must be accepted. But we cannot disregard all levels of discomfort during a major activation. When we are overstressed, overtired, or hangry, for example, we do make mistakes. So we must be able to develop that personal, internal, situational awareness, keep it at the forefront, and address those things when they arise. Second, Don't completely disregard your previous habits during a disaster. If you usually see your spouse, your children, or your dog at 6 p.m. after work each day, it's very important to try to keep doing that. But how do we do that? Well, my recommendation would be to find a private place, take 2 or 3 minutes, and FaceTime with your dog. That burst of energy and excitement that your dog is going to provide you, that your brain has literally been wired to receive after day and day and day and receiving it, try not to deny it of that. It's very important during an activation. Third, employee assistance professionals are often made available during large-scale incidents. Now, you may feel that you don't have the time or that it's not necessary for you because you're trying to prove that you are, in fact, bulletproof. But the fact of the matter is that strong, intense emotions are normal during a major disaster or activation. You will build emotional connections with those you work with and those that have been impacted by that disaster. So utilize your EAP. Last of all, I encourage you to seek out opportunities to speak about your experience after the incident. It's good for you and it's good for your audience. You will, in fact, probably find it truly therapeutic after an incident of that nature. So with that, thank you all very much for listening. And remember, we cannot care for those we are responsible for if we don't take our own self-care seriously.